I woke up standing in a field at 4 a.m. that shouldn't have existed. I had no shoes, no memory of getting there, and my eyes were bleeding. Not crying, bleeding. The eye damage was real. The dirt under my fingernails was real. But according to my security camera, I never left the house. I couldn't explain any of it either. Not then, but I can now. I lived in that hellhole for 3 weeks. That's all it took. This ain't some campfire ghost story. Ghosts are easy. You see them, you run, you're done. This thing had been rotting in that place for decades, waiting for some idiot to stare back. I stared. Now I wake up with dirt under my nails and that field burned into my skull. A place that don't exist but won't let me go. Some stories end. This one follows you home. Rincon Valley in Sonoma County. The kind of nowhere where people knew your car before they ever learned your name. I moved into a townhouse on the edge of it. 1 bedroom, rent so cheap it should have been a warning. I told myself I wanted quiet. Truth was, I was hoping quiet would finally make everything stop spinning. From the first night, something was off. Doors I'd closed would hang open. I'd close my eyes and see through someone else's eyes. They were always looking at me. I blamed stress, bad sleep. The explanations didn't stick. I set up a studio in the living room. Desk, monitors, cables spilling across the floor. I told myself I was working. Really, I just needed noise to fill the silence that place made. That Wednesday, friends came over to record. The second they walked in, something in me wanted them gone. The sound of them moving scraped the inside of my skull. I smoked a whole pack in under an hour. Will asked if I was all right. I shrugged. My attention kept slipping. The room felt rotated, like things had shifted when I wasn't looking. They convinced me to leave, get food, reset. The second I stepped outside, my body rejected it. Skin went cold. Everything tightened until I went back inside. The relief was immediate and wrong. I forced myself out anyway. Meat and noise. That's all the restaurant was. Meat shuffling between tables. Noise leaking out of holes in their faces. I watched them the way a dog watches a wound. My head wasn't giving me thoughts anymore. It was giving me previews. Little home movies shot in red. A waitress smiled at a kid, and I saw her hands around his throat. Not angry, tender, like she was tucking him in. A man kissed his wife's forehead, and I knew he'd done something to their daughter. Knew it the way you know your own name. None of it was real. All of it felt like memory. I didn't flinch. That's the part that should have sent me running. But it felt like coming home. Like my skull had always been a slaughterhouse, and I'd just been too polite to notice the flies. I told my friends I had to go. The words came out like a warning. The drive home felt like moving through a tunnel. I didn't talk. I kept my eyes on the road because if I looked at my friends too long, I had this sick fear that I'd see something in them I couldn't unsee. When we got back, I made them leave. No argument, no explanation worth anything. I just pushed them out the door like a man clearing a room. They didn't fight it. They looked worried, but they went. The house went quiet again, and my dog started growling. Callie was a pit, solid, protective, the kind of dog that didn't waste energy. She didn't bark at nothing. She didn't jump at shadows. That afternoon, she paced along the living room wall with her head low and her eyes fixed on the same corner over and over. When she reached it, she'd snap at the air like she could see what I was feeling. I tried to call her over. She ignored me. The TV shut off on its own. The screen went black like it had been unplugged. Then it turned back on. Then off again, slower, like somebody was pressing a button and waiting to see if I'd react. By sundown, the last fuse had blown, my head full of black smoke and broken glass. I picked up the phone and torched the whole thing with my girl. Scorched earth, no poetry, no exit interview, just napalm through the receiver. And here's the sick part. Nothing. Not a flicker of guilt, not even static where the remorse should have been. It felt good, like gutting a condemned house. The people were gone, the noise was dead, every last obligation dragged to the curb. I wanted the silence. I wanted to stand alone in the wreckage with whatever was waiting for me. No witnesses, no safety net, just me in the dark. Finally, face to face. I told myself I could handle it. Lies I needed to believe just to keep moving. Later that night, I went back into the studio, opened my files. The room was dark, just the monitors casting that sick glow, like nothing had breathed in there for a while. I wasn't fixing anything, wasn't making the songs better, just renaming files, moving words around because the ones in my head felt more solid than my decisions. I'd sit there staring at the screen, not blinking, and then a word would surface, clear and specific, like it had been whispered directly into my ear. I wouldn't question it. I'd just type it. Next thing I knew, I was sitting in my bed with my shoes still on, lights on, sweat damp in my hair, my body heavy. I tried to sit up, but I felt like Gumby. The room was dark anyway, even with the lights on. That was the only way I could describe it. The light didn't make it feel safer. It made it feel exposed. I told myself to get up and check the front door. The thought stayed in my head and never reached my legs. I gave up, reached over, and turned the lights off. The only glow left was the alarm clock on my nightstand, one of those old black rectangles with red numbers, the kind that makes the whole room look bruised. It read a little after 1. My thoughts were already loose. I could feel myself becoming a passenger. The next thing I knew, I was standing in a graveyard. It wasn't dream logic. It wasn't blurry. It had weight. Rows of graves stretched out in every direction like someone had planted them. Fog sat low to the ground. The sky was starless, a flat, dark lid. I could smell wet earth. A mile ahead of me, impossibly clean in the middle of that place, was a fast food building, lit from the inside with a cold, bluish glow. The windows were all glass, too bright, like an aquarium. People stood inside, workers in uniforms lined up behind the counter. Every one of them was looking straight at me. They had this look like they had been there for 1,000 years. I walked toward it because I couldn't think of anything else to do. As I got closer, I could see their faces. Pale, not rotted, not monster makeup, just drained, like blood had been removed carefully and the body forgot to replace it. Their eyes were open, but empty in a way that didn't match sleep. I reached the front door and knocked, hard enough that my knuckles stung. Nobody moved to unlock it. One of them lifted an arm and pointed, not at me, but past me, like I was standing in front of a sign I couldn't see. I turned and followed the angle of his finger. On the side wall of the building was a red circle clock. Plain, bright, wrong in that blue light. The hands were on 3. The moment I saw it, a door slammed somewhere behind me, and I woke up in my bedroom. The sound was real enough that my dog started flipping out. I sat up too fast and got dizzy. The alarm clock glowed red beside me. It read 3 o'clock. I didn't sit there and explain it to myself. I just stared at the numbers until my eyes watered. Callie was pacing in my bedroom. I could hear her nails clicking on the floor in a tight line, back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm didn't change. I got out of bed and went to her. All the lights were off. I didn't reach for a switch. I didn't want to flood the room and find something standing there. I moved through the dark by memory, by the shape of furniture, by the faint red spill coming from the bedroom clock. Callie kept her head angled toward the bedroom closet. That closet always felt off. When the door was shut, it never looked fully shut, even when it latched. She paced in front of it without taking her eyes off the seam. From somewhere in the house, I heard a keyboard clacking, like someone typing fast on my computer. Then it stopped. Then I heard it again, softer, like the keys were being pressed with a finger that didn't need to hurry. I stood there in the living room with my dog watching a closet and my mind running through every excuse it could find. The excuses didn't land. My energy dropped hard, like somebody pulled a plug. I was in the deep end. I tried to take a breath, and it came in shallow, and that was when my body locked. Not metaphorically, not I froze. I mean, I was done. I could move my eyes. That was it. My head felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My tongue was thick. I tried to lift my hand and nothing happened. The closet stayed shut. The typing stopped. And then the world dropped out. I woke up in a field. Flat land, half-dead grass. No trees, no road, no buildings. Just distance in every direction, and a moon that gave off barely enough light to tell me there wasn't anything to run into. My mouth was dry in a way that actually hurt. My throat felt torn up, like I'd been screaming or breathing wrong for too long. The cold from the ground had already settled into my clothes. I stood up and started walking. There was no sense of time. The moon didn't shift. The sky didn't change. My feet began to ache, and then the ache dulled, like my body decided pain was a waste of resources out there. After what could have been hours, I saw a single tree. It shouldn't have mattered. It did. My whole focus narrowed on it. A single living thing in that empty place, like a marker. At the base of the tree sat a tin cup. I picked it up, and the metal was colder than the air. Inside was a dark liquid, filled to the same level it would be if someone had poured it carefully. The smell was enough to make my stomach pull tight. Blood, that sharp penny smell, mixed with something older. I lowered the cup and stood there, trying to decide if thirst could make me do it. A voice whispered close to my ear, too close for an empty field. There's only 3 more left. I spun around. Nothing. No body. No movement in the grass. Just the tree, the cup, and the long, flat, dark. Then I saw lights. Not near me, far out. Little points igniting one by one until they formed a wide ring around the tree. They weren't steady like lamps. They hovered at uneven heights and had a faint sway to them, like pulsing. I didn't stand there and reason it out. My throat burned. My mouth felt swollen. I drank. The liquid was warm for a split second before it turned cold going down. I swallowed until the cup was empty, and the lights tightened in my peripheral vision. Everything went black. I woke up in the field again. Same moon, same grass, same hunger. The only difference was that my body didn't feel exhausted the way it should have. That bothered me more than the field. I walked for hours again, screaming, jumping, hoping I could wake myself up and convince myself it was a nightmare. Nothing changed, just me in the empty field. I found the tree. I found the cup. The flame-like lights returned. The voice said, "Only 2 left." Then it happened again. The loop wasn't dramatic. It was procedural, like a routine somebody had done enough times to get bored. On the last time, the lights didn't wait on the edge of my vision. They were there, fast, close, bright enough to make my eyes sting. The voice came again, right beside me, intimate, patient. There are no more left. I understood without needing it explained. The cup wasn't saving me. I drank anyway. Not because I wanted it, because there wasn't an option left that didn't end with me standing there. Then there was blackness. I was standing, not waking up, standing. The tree was in front of me in the distance. The field was the same, but I wasn't on the ground. I looked down and my stomach dropped through itself. My legs weren't there. My hands weren't there either. I tried to lift them and nothing moved, because there was nothing to lift. I could see through where my body should have been. The only thing that felt real were my eyes, and they were burning like they'd been lit from the inside. I turned my head and saw the balls of flame lined up on both sides of me, evenly spaced, level with where my face was. I wasn't looking at a circle anymore. I was part of it. The lights weren't torches. They weren't lanterns. They were eyes reflecting fire. Pairs of burning points set in faces I couldn't see, hovering in place. The only reason I knew what they were was because mine felt the same. Heat without warmth, light without comfort. We all stared at the base of the tree, and then someone walked into the field. A kid, young enough that the way he moved told on him. Slow, uncertain, scanning the dark like he expected a streetlight to show up if he looked hard enough. He approached the tree the way I had. Something in me tried to surge forward. I tried to make noise, tried to warn him. No mouth, no lungs, no sound. The circle tightened, as if we could push ourselves closer through desperation alone. Something stepped in behind him, burning, but not like a person on fire, more like a shape made for heat, dead weight wearing flame. The light bounced off our eyes and came back wrong. It moved in close to the kid, bent toward his ear, said something I couldn't make out. The kid vanished, not ran, not fell, gone. The field reset like a screen refreshing. The tree stayed, the cup stayed, the circle slid back into position. The next person came, and the next. It kept happening, counting without numbers. Then I woke up in my bed, the sunshine beaming through my window. My sheets were soaked. My mouth was so dry my lips stuck when I tried to breathe. My eyes burned so badly, I had to keep them half shut. Someone was pounding on my front door. I sat up, confused, shaking, trying to remember how to move a body that still belonged to me. The pounding didn't stop. Voices outside, familiar ones, my friends. When I opened the door, they looked past me into the house like they expected to see something behind my shoulder. Will pulled me aside into the kitchen and kept his voice low. He said he'd come by the day before and I hadn't answered. Came back at night and tried again. He stood on the porch with his hand on the doorknob, knowing I was inside, and left because he didn't know what else to do without breaking in. He asked if I'd noticed anything wrong with the place. I didn't want to hand him the truth. I gave him pieces, said he'd been digging into the property, the land around it, reading old stuff online, making phone calls. He used the kind of words people use when they're trying not to sound ridiculous. Burials, history, bad ground. Then he called someone he trusted, an older woman out in Ohio who did palm readings and whatever else people labeled without understanding. I didn't want that either. Didn't want more voices in my life. But he put her on speaker and she talked like she already knew I wasn't going to be okay. She didn't ask me how I felt. She told me to go to the bedroom, then to the closet. She told me there was a cutout under the carpet. My skin went cold, not because it made sense, because it matched the shape of the thing I'd been avoiding without admitting it. I went into the bedroom. The closet door was closed. I opened it, and the smell hit me. Stale fabric, dust, old cardboard, the sour edge of something damp. I knelt, pulled at the carpet, and found the seam. A square section that didn't belong, like someone had laid it down with the intention of hiding a place you weren't supposed to look. I lifted it. Underneath was a hole into the crawl space. Dirt, darkness, the raw underside of the house. And down there, directly beneath the closet, there was a chair. A metal chair, empty, angled as if someone had just stood up and never came back. Cigarette butts circled it, old and pale, pressed into the dirt by time. Beside it sat a cup, not similar, not mistaken, the same thing I had already seen before. I said it slowly because I had to be sure. A tin fucking cup.